Hey there, it's E Squared Photography. I'm Erin, going solo without Emily today, but I am here to keep things simple and fun. Are you struggling to get those tack-sharp focus photos and you're ending up with blurry ones or just flat out of focus? Well, we're here to give some helpful tips today. And make sure to stick around until the end because we have something special just for you. By the end of this video, we hope you feel more confident with focus so you can finally get those tack-sharp photos you've been dreaming of. And for the best photography tips and tricks, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications of future videos. Okay, so let's fix the blur, fix the missed eyes, fix the chaos. It's not your camera, it's probably your settings. So stop refusing to understand focus if you want tack-sharp photos. Your photos are not going to look professional until you truly understand how to control focus. The camera doesn't read your mind when it comes to focus. If you're struggling to get sharp subjects, it's time to stop guessing and start focusing on, well, focus. A lot of times we want to blame our lens, and while that could be the case in a very minor instance, it's not the lens, it's your focus. So let's talk about why focus is a game changer. Now, when people look at your photo, they look at the eyes first. And if the subject eyes are not in focus, the whole image just feels off. Even if everything else is perfect and it's out of focus, it doesn't feel necessarily professional. It just feels off. So sharpness is perceived as more of a professionalism. Now, while the trends kind of go up and down with blurry photos and stuff, we're not talking necessarily about those. We're just talking about those crisp, sharp, professional looking photos. So I'm going to walk you through some common focus mistakes. And the first one is using full auto area focus, where the camera is just guessing what to focus on. Now, while cameras are definitely getting smarter, they're not necessarily as smart as the photographer themselves. So we want to avoid using any sort of all completely auto focus. Another common focus mistake is focusing once and then recomposing. But when you recompose, now we used to actually use the focus and recompose method with our DSLR camera and loved it. However, if you are accidentally shifting the plane of focus, so your camera is moving too much when you are recomposing, so you can lock focus in where you want it, but if you're then shifting it back, forward, out of the plane that you want it on, it's going to mess with focus. So that really takes practice, and we loved it, but it's because we practice so much with it. So while it's a really good way to focus, it does require a little bit of practice to make sure that your camera is staying on the same plane when you are recomposing. We get asked this question all the time: why are my images blurry? And a lot of times it comes back to something like this. So standing too far back and then cropping in later. Bye-bye sharpness if you're doing something like that. So I just pulled this picture up for an example. So this is a photo that we took of a senior girl on the left-hand side here, and we loved the photo. We wanted to get all of that background in there because we just liked that environmental setting there. I was showing off the trees, and I was showing off her farm that she lives on, blah, blah, blah. However, if we were like, I love that shot, but I also want a close-up of that shot, so let's crop in really, really tight. Well, and it's probably hard to tell depending on what you're watching this on, but this close photo of her is very blurry, very out of focus. If you try to blow this up to hang on the wall or even put it in the yearbook, you're probably going to get a little red flag that says the resolution is all off because it is so out of focus. So you have to be careful. While these far away shots, they look fine, but if you're trying to then crop in later, that's not how it's going to work. And so a lot of times we will do these pulled away shots, but then we will go closer up to the client and actually get those shots that are close up. Now, this brings me to something else that we get all the time, and people ask, why is my far away shot out of focus? Well, we will be honest, the farther away that you get from your client, the less sharp the photo is going to be if you are focusing in all ways. So if you were to look at some of our far away shots of our clients, guess what? They're not extremely super sharp or as sharp as the ones of our close-up headshots of our clients. Now, while this might seem like a mistake that you can probably figure out on your own, but sometimes we are just focusing on the wrong place. So when you have a lot going on in a photo, you might just be flat out focusing on the wrong place. So this particular photo here, really our focus is the senior guy. So we should be focusing on his eyes, and that's where we did focus. But it could be very easily, if we have some sort of autofocus on, to maybe it's focusing on the dog or maybe a part of the truck, and now the senior is completely out of focus. So being sure that your focus is on the place that you want it is very, very important. Okay, so there are many different types of focus modes when it comes to your camera, but using something like single point focus is really important when first starting out. So you are going to put the focus point where you want it. You're manually going to put it there, whether you're moving your camera and framing it there, or you are using the little scroll buttons left and right, up and down on your camera, on the back of your camera, to move that focus point exactly where you want it. Some of the fancier cameras now even have it touch, so you could touch exactly where you want it and put that single point focus on, well, if you look at all of these pictures, on their eye. So that's where I would tap, or that's where I would toggle to make sure my single point focus is on the eye. That's going to mean that that's the sharpest point in the entire photo. This is the number one fix for beginning photographers, is understanding how to get the sharp focus by using single point focus. So it's something to practice on. Once you master something like this, it's also a great idea to look into using something like back button focus, or what we use on our mirrorless cameras now. It's absolutely amazing. Technology is getting crazy good. Is we use an eye tracking. And we also have the option to manually, if it's not tracking the eye in the right way, to manually tap where we want it. So let's talk about a few other pieces when it comes to focus mode settings that you should know or understand. So you can use something called AFS, or one shot focus mode. This is for still subjects. Like this would be for a senior portrait, a still senior portrait. Or you could use something called AFC, or AI servo, or continuous. We use AFC on our Nikon, which is continuous, for moving subjects, whether it be kids that like to move around, or sports, or pets, whatever it be. And to be honest, yes, we shoot both still shots and motion shots. We are not flipping back and forth between AFS and AFC. We are sticking with AFC and we don't touch it. We leave it where it is. So we're always shooting in AFC, something that maybe you would want to know. And then eye detection is amazing if your subject isn't turning their head every 2 seconds. But like I said before, if it's not detecting, which cameras are getting better and better at it, if it's not detecting in the exact right place that you want it, then you can manually tap or toggle your focus point where you want it. Another thing that has to do with focus is your shutter speed. And we can't stress this enough, that if your shutter speed is too low, even with a sharp focus point, it's not going to save you. You're still going to get that blurry shot. So watch your shutter speed, and focus can be absolutely perfect, like I said, but still look blurry if that's off. And so a general rule is we like to stay at about a 1 or 250 or higher when it comes to shutter speed, only because we're dealing a lot with movement in photos. And so that's kind of our safe bet. We're always shooting above a 1/250, and we find that our photos are sharp if we stick to that rule. Something else to think about is our depth of field awareness when it comes to sharp photos. So aperture, or f-stop, can play a role in getting sharp focus. So for example, a very low f-stop or low aperture number is an f1.8. While this gives you the creamy bokeh, it's also going to give you razor thin focus. And what I mean by that is if I am someone's taking a photo of me and I have my head tilted slightly this way, and they're focusing on this eye at a 1.8, there's a chance that this eye might get a little blurry, or that my necklace that I'm wearing might be a little bit blurry. So when we shoot at a very low f-stop number, that can really cause room for error. So a lot of times when we're shooting like a senior, for example, we don't like to go down to the lowest f-stop possible. We shoot at about a 2.2 and we feel like it's pretty safe in keeping the big things still in focus. So using a higher aperture if you're struggling with focus, especially with larger groups. So it's really huge when you're working with larger groups to have a higher f-stop number. But if you are struggling with focus and trying to figure out what am I doing wrong, that would be a good place to play around with. Maybe making your aperture a little bit higher, or larger, so then you can make sure that that's not the issue. So an example would be if I look at two people here, one is slightly in front of the other. The littler girl is slightly in front of the older one. And I'm shooting at a 1.8 and I'm focusing on the little girl in front, which is where I probably should be focusing. The girl in back could now be out of focus because my aperture is so low and it's causing that razor thin focus. So real quick, here is your focus fix checklist. Use single point focus and move it manually if you have to. Use AFS or AFC. Like I said before, we like to use AFC. Keep shutter speed fast enough, over a 1/250. Watch your aperture that it's not too low and you miss focus on important things. And then most of all, like always, get out and practice with still objects first and then bring in moving objects to see if you can find that tack-sharp focus. Now, we hope this video was helpful today, but we do have something special for you here. And you can check out our portrait photography starter kit that is going to give you all things packed with behind the scenes of us at Real Sessions, how to nail focus even more, mastering camera settings. It's going to give you some of the basics to get you started if you're a beginning photographer. So make sure to check that out in the link below. Now, we hope this video was helpful. And if you liked it, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with a friend so we know to make more videos just like this one. And I will see you next time.